NBA preseason starts this Friday. I know none of us saw that coming. I actually had no idea until last week, but we are doing our Eastern Conference preview. Let's get into foul trouble.
Seems weird to start it on Friday, but it kind of started last Friday.
Yeah, with Media Day.
With Media Day and just a super mega trade that nobody saw coming. Like, I definitely didn't see that cat trade coming.
So I was telling Max before we started, I don't know what happened that day. I fell asleep at like 8:30 p.m. I was just exhausted. And I woke up the next day to like Cat got traded like 20 minutes after you fell asleep. And I was like, Cat was on the trade block? ? And the Knicks? How are the Knicks still making moves? They already broke up the friendship fraternity before it even started.
Did you see how they ended up making the money work? So they brought in Charlotte
Hornets,
as the third team, but then they signed and traded Dwayne Washington, Daquan Jeffries, and like some other like two-way contract to cobble together the $9 million just for the price of like 3 second-round picks. Like, really, really, like we're in a weird world where the Knicks really might have the best front office in the league. But I feel like we have to lead off with this Karl Anthony Towns Julius Randle trade.
Can I make an admission about the trade?
Yeah.
When the reporting comes out that it's like, so they've made the trade, but they need a third team to make it work. Like, Chaos Me was like, oh, please tell me no third team steps up. And then both guys have to enter training camp knowing their teams wanted to trade them. Like, I kind of wanted the chaos.
That would be like the most Timberwolves thing to happen.
Like, you remember when DeAndre Jordan signed with the Mavericks and then the Clippers were like, actually, we're not going to let you leave your house until you re-sign with us? Like, yeah. I like weird chaos NBA.
Were you privy to the time the Suns traded Trevor Ariza to the Wizards? And the like Grizzlies were involved when they had Marshawn Brooks and Dillon Brooks, like very young Dillon Brooks. And the Suns are like, we're getting Dillon Brooks, right? Right? And the Grizzlies were like, no.
Marshawn. I do remember the Brooks saga. Yeah, no, NBA is more fun when it's weird. We didn't get weird enough. But yeah, okay, so I didn't really know how to prepare for this. You wanted to go in tiers, and I think that's a good way to do it. So it sounds like if we're starting with the Knicks, we're going to start with the top tier teams.
Yeah, let's start with the top tier teams.
Who are your top tier? How many teams are in your tier one?
In my tier one, there is one team. It is the Boston Celtics, our reigning champions. They won 64 games last year and really like had one of the more dominant postseason runs that we've seen in modern NBA history. And they're just completely running it back. They weirdly have like a chip on their shoulder, like a lot of their players individually, maybe not as like a whole, but am I wrong to have the Celtics
alone
all by themselves?
No, you're not wrong. I was thinking tier one more as this team could win the conference. And I think for the non-Boston Celtics teams that have in this tier one, it would be something weird happened with the Celtics or something unexpectedly good happened with one of these teams. But I like your definition of putting the Celtics all by themselves. So we've got the Celtics in tier one. So I guess we're going to start with the Celtics then and then get to the Knicks.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say at the Celtics. Last year, the Celtics had a 11.4 point differential. No other team had above 8. So, yeah, this team was by far the most dominant team in the regular season. I mean, they absolutely crushed it, 37-4 at home. We saw in the finals just an ability to play a 5-out offense, but also, unlike most 5-out teams, still be pretty big because you've got Jason Tatum at 6'10 at the 4. You've got a nice center rotation with Horford and Porzingis. I mean, you've got such a nice rim attacking presence with Brown. And then all 4 of the perimeter guys are just such good defenders. And then you're funneling them toward a rim protector in Porzingis, who's like 7'2". And we saw they win the finals without Porzingis even playing in a lot of the games.
So Porzingis is kind of like the main question mark, I think, for this Boston Celtics team. It's looking like we probably won't see him until the calendar turns over to 2025. Does that concern you at all with like the regular season, like wins equity? Like, should that be a point of concern for Celtics fans, or is it just like, don't worry about the seed. You're the Celtics. You'll be fine.
I feel like for the last 5 years of Celtics basketball, a lot of what we hear is like, I don't know how this team's going to guard Joel Embiid. And then every postseason, they just figure it out. So I feel like I'm not too concerned if I'm a Celtics fan because it seems like they always figure it out. And what makes this team unique is the perimeter size. And I think this team is more equipped to handle like to handle extended stretches of, let's say, subpar center play. Like, let's say one of their backup bigs has to play a ton of minutes, like in the regular season. I think this team is better handled to equip that because of the perimeter size, because of the perimeter defense, than almost any other team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think even if...
Also, how tall do you think Luke Cornett is?
He's like 7 foot, right?
Yeah, he's 7'2".
Damn.
I mean, he's not great, but like...
Luke Cornett is good. Like,
Yeah, like-
any team would be fine having Luke Cornett off their bench.
Yeah, you surround him with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the two guards, like, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Celtics are just in an amazing spot. I think it's going to be a tough season for, the Heat fan in me, the Jason Tatum and, detractor in me. I think Tatum is going to have... It's going to be weird to say a bounce back season after a year he won the finals and was actually pretty good almost the entire regular season. But I think his jump shot's going to come back.
Yeah, the hitch gone?
I think, yeah, obviously Celtics jump shooting community has been all over this. But Jason Tatum was one of the best 3-point shooting rookies ever. Like, not just for like that mold, like just ever. He was so good of a shooter. So I think it's weird his jump shot faded so hard. I think if it was a mechanical issue, it seems like he's working to correct it, especially after the whole Olympic thing and the...
I wanted to bring up the Olympics. Like, how do you think that like does it rear its head during the season? Is that a thing, or is that just kind of like a media created narrative that we all like to harp on that will...
Are you talking about Tatum's minutes or the fact that Brown didn't make the team?
Kind of both, like all of the drama.
I think all the Olympic, quote unquote, disrespect toward the Celtics is, I think it's only going to help them. I think when you win the chip and you have this big of a chip on your shoulder, you know what this reminds me of is the 2015 Warriors. Remember they win the finals and everyone's like, well, everybody you played was
Kyrie
hurt.
was
Kyrie was hurt. Love was hurt.
Yeah.
Like, were you guys even good or did you get lucky? And then the next year they're like, no, we went 72-10. We were actually just really good and lucky, but we were really good.
Yeah.
And I think the Celtics will be kind of similar where it's like, we got lucky last year, but that doesn't mean we weren't really good.
Yeah. Damn. So could you see a scenario where they win over 64 games?
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the mid 60 wins again. What do you think?
I mean, if I was a betting man, I would probably like bet the under if 64 wins was the line, just because the Porzingis stuff like does matter, even though he did miss a pretty extended part of last regular season too. But they came into the year with him. But I mean, it is like continuity is king. They are probably have the best continuity situation in the league. And last year, at the start of the year, a year since that trade happened was when the Drew Holiday trade happened. Now he's been there for a year, so I definitely get the argument for over.
I think the reason I'm like last year, you remember, I think I picked the Celtics to win the East, but the whole year I was like, I still think Denver's better. This year I'm kind of the same. I'm like, all right, I think Celtics are the best team by far until someone proves me wrong. But I think what I'm high on about them is I still feel like both Jaylen and Tatum could still be getting better.
Yeah.
They're both under
totally.
30, so I don't know. I still feel like, especially Tatum, if the jump shot really comes back, and I think that alone could also help his rim finishing, and he's already so good at defense and rebounding. Like, I'm really high on the Celtics again.
Yeah, I am too. Okay, so tier 2, where it gets like actually interesting. Who are your tier 2 contenders?
So tier 2 contenders being, we're talking about end of the season, right? Not regular season.
Yeah.
Because I have one stipulation with one of my tier 2 teams. All right, I've got the Knicks, the Bucks, and the Sixers.
Me too.
Yep.
It's pretty straightforward. What's your stipulation with one of these teams?
So I feel like the Sixers have been the like NBA's amazing regular season, bad playoff team. And I feel like this is the year where it flips, where the Sixers are the like so-so regular season team, but way better in the playoffs.
Why, with the added Paul George, who relatively has always been like a very effective regular season player. He always kept the Clippers above water when Kawhi was missing time. Obviously, we've talked a lot on this podcast about how Joel Embiid is just like 40 wins walking around, even if he only plays half the season. Why do you think that this season it might be the opposite for the Sixers?
So everything we've been hearing out of Sixers camp is like Joel Embiid is not going to go for awards. They're going to try to load manage him. They're going to try to just get him ready for the playoffs. Because that's the thing. Even last year, Embiid was playing on a bad knee. He had the eye injury. It's like, I think for the Sixers, they're at the point in their team where it's like, look, just get Embiid healthy. And what we know from the Sixers is if he's not playing a lot, they're not that good. That's in the playoffs. That's in the regular season. So I just feel like last year the Sixers were a 47-win team, which actually made them in the play-in. I feel like they're going to be around 47 again, but it'll look smoother. And I think their whole goal is just going to be get Joel Embiid healthy. So if he has any sort of weird injury around like February, March, like I don't think you're going to see a lot of him at the end of the season.
See, I'm kind of attacking the Sixers from another standpoint, just because like the thing that's easy to, it feels so long ago, forget about the Sixers. A year ago, they still had James Harden on their team. And they had this huge midseason trade that made their roster really weird. And this season, they did a lot of their business really early on in free agency. And they have like real depth in a way that I don't know that they have had, at least in the past couple of years. But adding Andre Drummond, who's probably the best backup center in the league, obviously Paul George, Eric Gordon, who was terrible last year, but
it was terrible last year.
Reggie Jackson, who I think can add to your team on a regular basis. Caleb Martin, Jared McCain, Gershon Yabusele, like a lot of NBA quality role players. And I think the biggest thing that makes me think like if any team's going to take the first seed, honestly, the way I feel is if any team is going to take the first seed from the Celtics, it's going to be the 76ers team, is because of what Tyrese Maxey showed to me last postseason.
Yeah, the thing with Maxey, and I'm the biggest Maxey guy ever, and this is why I'm high on them in the playoffs, he did dip down a little bit in his play in the regular season when Embiid was out, and my worry too is, any game Embiid misses means whatever minutes Drummond isn't playing is going to look like last year's Sixers. And I'm just a little
not a
worried.
big Adembona guy.
Yeah, I like the Sixers as a postseason team more than probably any other version of them. But it's so funny. I feel like this is the year all the teams that you liked last year, I like this year.
Yeah, we are.
So we're like totally doing a big flip flop. But yeah, we both have the Sixers in tier 1. I think for us, the Sixers winning the East probably means something went a little wrong with Boston and something went a little too right with them. But
yeah,
kind of how we feel about the Knicks and the Bucks too.
They could see. For me, I almost put the Bucks into another tier. Into like a tier
2.5 or 1.5.
Yeah, like 2.5.
Okay, so you have them at the bottom of this second tier. Okay.
Yeah, I was very close, and maybe this is the point where we jump into the Knicks trade and just the Knicks postseason as a whole. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Into the Knicks.
Okay.
I think I was really splitting hairs with Knicks and 76ers as regular season teams. I think there's a clear ceiling upgrade for the 76ers than the Knicks, but I think the floor is a lot higher for the Knicks.
Yep.
One, they're just a younger team, which that usually equates to regular season success. But for me, going into this season pre-trade, I had two huge questions about the Knicks. One was, what does their center rotation look like? Obviously, Hartenstein was huge for their playoff run, and just for they ended up as the second seed in the East last year, and that was fighting through a Julius Randle injury, that was fighting through a Mitchell Robinson injury. What does that look like? And then my other question was, are they going to have someone be able to step up into that clear second option? That I think it was very egalitarian in the way they were filling it in the playoffs. I went through and looked at all their playoff games and looked at who the high scorer was other than Julius Randle, and it was all over the place. Like 4.5 games DiVincenzo, 4.5 games Hart, Alec Burks had one game, McBride, OG. Like it was kind of all over the place. And I think taking out Julius Randle, a guy that didn't play at all in the postseason, and replacing him with Cat, who shores up the center position, makes Josh Hart work a little bit better for me in a world where Josh Hart isn't like just flaming out of his mind shooting from three. And banking on Mikal Bridges being a high minute guy, which he always is, that doesn't miss games, that can kind of fill in the DiVincenzo spot. This trade really worked for me from a Knicks perspective.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the Cat trade. We talked a lot about it before the pod. I just like you're adding the king of dumb fouls to like a very disciplined team. I'm just worried about like in the playoffs, teams are just kind of rope-a-doping him on defense a lot. I'm worried because I feel like the thing with Cat is the theory of Cat has always been great, the spacing and everything. But then the reality is like it's never quite as clean as it. You know, when you watch a Celtics game and it's like, wow, Al Horford's just open hitting threes. I feel like when I watch Timberwolves games, it's never that clean. You know, oh, Cat's just open in the corner shooting. It's like I feel like the idea of Cat is better than the execution, but I do think his style of being a bit more of an off-ball player does, you know, fit better than Randall with this kind of Brunson-centric team. And I think even though I'm not in love with Cat as a defender, they're insulating him with so much perimeter defense with OG, Bridges, Hart. I'm just like a little worried too because Mitchell Robinson is going to miss a lot of the season. And I like to your point about the center rotation, like heading into this season before the Cat trade, it was like, all right, we've got Jericho Sims who hasn't done anything. We've got Ariel Hukporti who. And then people were like, yeah, OG's going to play the 5 at times. And
hey, they got like, Precious Achiuwa, who's like 6'5".
And I'm like, okay, OG's going to play the 5 at times. Like, that didn't really work in the Sixers series. I know they won the series, but that strategy didn't work.
He can barely stay healthy when he plays the 3 or the 4.
Yeah, so I think Cat is actually going to help them with this whole, like, okay, now we're going to have, by the time the playoffs roll around, presumably 2 healthy centers who are going to be able to, you know, do this. I'm just personally worried about when we get to the postseason, like, Cat, like, you know, it's quarter 3 of Bucks Knicks, and Cat has 4 fouls at the end of the second quarter because Giannis is just running at him repeatedly. And I think that's what scares me about the Knicks is like, even though Cat's a more talented player than Hartenstein, you're switching out discipline for like raw immaturity, in my opinion, immaturity.
It is a weird thing to like wrap your head around because I think the argument for like, what does a like number 1 overall seed Knicks team look like before the trade was like, oh, they probably have like the best defense in the league, and then they have a bottom like top 10 offense. Yeah, like and now it's just like completely flipped. It's like they're going to have the best offense in the league and a bottom top 10, like 8, 9, 10 defense. And that's kind of the structure that works.
I still think they could be top 5 in both. In the regular season?
I think they could be. Yeah. Maybe that's like a little bit more.
Do you think there's a chance the Knicks are the 2nd overall seed in the entire league behind the Celtics?
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point. Like, I think it's more likely than not that the 2nd Eastern Conference team are.
Just actually, well, the East is so much weaker than the West. Like,
but the Oklahoma City Thunder do exist.
I think the gap between the Thunder and their conference isn't as big as the gap between the Knicks, Celtics, and the rest of their conference, though.
And it's just going to be a fucking
bloodbath,
knife fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I do want to bring up is like Julius Randle's playoff scoring. I think it needs to be said that he is literally the least efficient high volume playoff scorer of all time. And I say that and it sounds like hyperbole, but when you like filter out guys in their playoff careers to have at least 13 field goal attempts a game and shoot under 35% from the field, post-merger, only 2 guys come up. It's Julius Randle and Austin Carr. And Austin Carr barely even like meets that year threshold. And he played in a time where it was a lot more like normal to have efficiency around there. And Julius Randle is a bigger player. So like, I kind of think they might have gotten away with something having Julius Randle not play in the last playoffs and be able to trade him for what seems like a like fair deal for a guy in Cat that just like, regardless of the shots that he makes, he won't take as many. He will make a much higher percentage. And just like he changes the geometry of the court in a way that it's going to make you play faster and it's going to make you play more efficiently.
Yeah. The only thing, too, I think the Knicks are really losing, though, playing a spacing 5 is like I feel like a big part of why this team was so good in the postseason was their offensive rebounding. And I feel like, you know, just playing a guy away from the basket, you do lose that a little bit. Like I do worry about the identity of the team kind of changing unintentionally with this trade, but I think the Knicks are going to be a good team. That's why we both have them at the top of our tier 2. The other team we didn't talk about in this tier 2/tier 2.5 in your case is the Milwaukee Bucks. And they're like my inverse Sixers, where I think this is going to be a dynamite regular season team, and I think they're going to suck in the postseason.
I did not have the Chris Middleton is going to miss the start of the season on my bingo card. And it really stresses me out. I love their additions. Like, I think DeLon Wright is a great get. He's kind of exactly what they were missing last year with their defensive backcourt was just in such shambles. Gary Trent Jr. is a huge get. I am not a Taurean Prince hater. Like, I think he'll be able to add something coming off their bench. But I think they really need all three of these, like their big three, to be there and be able to contribute. And just like you, I'm worried if they don't have like a dynamite matchup in the first round where they can really get the ball rolling. I don't know what it looks like.
The reason I'm high on this team is I know Lillard. I think maybe I'm a little bit of a Lillard apologist. And I know last year and like the year before were pretty rough at times, but I just kind of refuse to believe this guy who's been so good, is such an amazing shooter, is going to like really struggle again. He had the injury 2 years ago. This last offseason was just, it seemed like really rough for him. I think also what we're kind of forgetting about the Bucks last year was their coach was a disaster.
That is true.
Like literally after game one of the season, Giannis brought a whiteboard to his office and was like, what the fuck are we doing? And I feel like when Giannis is doing that, there's like a big problem.
They still ended with 49 wins.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is all last season, the whole narrative, the whole year was like, what's wrong with the Bucks? And it was like, the Bucks are on pace to win like 50 games. But no, I think Doc will help really kind of just make this a normal team. Last year they weren't a normal team. But yeah, I don't really see it in the postseason. I just feel like this team's a little too old.
I think it's matchup dependent for sure. And it all hinges on Giannis. When you have a guy of Giannis's caliber, it's like he really can like take you wherever you want to go. But just they're so old. They are such an old team. And
to me, this just feels like we're going to be in like May and it's going to be like game 6. Milwaukee versus New York, and it's going to be like, wow, Giannis has 43, and no one is doing anything, and the Knicks have OG and Mikal and Jalen, and they have like 10 really good guys, and the Bucks have like
crowd is
3.5
going crazy.
Really good guys. Yeah, and I don't know.
Spike Lee's yelling at Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I just, this feels a lot like the year where Giannis like almost beat the Celtics by himself, but couldn't quite do it. Like, that's kind of how I envision this team's season ending.
You know what it really feels like to me is this is Giannis's last year on the Bucks.
I could see that.
Like, I don't know if that's a hot take, but I just he signed the contract extension last year after the Damian Lillard trade finished. I cannot put too much belief in a Doc Rivers coach team at this point, and I think that's warranted because Doc Rivers just has not been able to elevate really, really talented teams time and time again at this point. And I think we are just far enough away from that contract extension. And Giannis has so much clout that he could just demand a trade and they would kind of have to give it to him.
Yeah. So where do you kind of envision Milwaukee then? You envision them as more of the 4 seed, the 5 seed? Because you have them in this weird halfway into tier 2, halfway into tier 3 category.
Yeah, I would say like probably 4 or 5. Just kind of putting in that like one of the teams in my next tier, I think will have a really successful regular season. I'm not super positive which one it will be, but yeah, and I think that you've got to calculate injuries in because they just will.
They are
happen. They already are hurt.
They're old.
They already are hurt.
Okay, so I'm guessing your tier 3 is these 4 teams: the Cavaliers, the Magic, the Pacers, and the Miami Heat.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah, right. I got to say the East is going to look a lot like last year, in my opinion. I think the bottom of the play-in, the Bulls and the Hawks might change out, but I think our top 8 teams are going to be the same top 8 teams.
Yeah, I mean they're just right there. There's a huge talent gap, and like maybe something crazy could happen in the play-in, but these teams are really good. Where do you want to start in this tier? In my tier 3, I named it playoff teams with something to prove, and I wrote kind of what they have to prove for each one.
All right, we'll start. Cleveland, I want to spend the least time on. It's basically the same team they've had the last 2 years, which has been an awesome regular season team that has been.
It is exactly the same team.
Yeah, like Cleveland, like Donovan Mitchell is going to be awesome. I think Garland will be a little bit better. I think they could approach 50 wins again.
Remember how Garland like fucking sucked in the playoffs? Like
And
he was
for a lot of the regular
really,
season?
really bad.
Yeah, I think Garland will bounce back.
Mid-season trade candidate for
Yeah,
sure.
I think the Cavs are the biggest. Like until they make a move, I don't want to talk about them because what is there to talk about?
I mean, the biggest move that they made this offseason was replacing their coach. They're coached by Kenny Atkinson now, who by all measures is a really good coach, and we'll see what he can do.
The Orlando Magic, who added Caldwell Pope, they've added a little bit of shooting. Again, they're kind of another team where I'm like, okay, they had 47 wins last year. I think they could push up to 50.
Yeah.
I don't really know if they can go above that until something materially changes with some of their star players, like shooting ability or something. I think Paulo showed last year he has a lot of potential to be a 1A guy at some point, probably on a more talented team. But like, I mean, do you have any thoughts on the Magic? I don't know if I think the only team of this bunch that I'm really kind of like interested in is the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely the most interesting team of the bunch. I mean, with the Magic, it is kind of like Franz, are you going to shoot 28% from three again this year? Or are you going to go back to where you were like mid 35 range? Because that swings a lot, I think.
Well, also that's going to be huge too, because if he's bad again, all of a sudden the Magic, like we just signed this dude to a gigantic contract and he's not great. He's just good.
Then it's kind of like we should like, do we get in that potential Giannis sweepstakes by like dangling Franz? Like, is he good enough to like get us in those negotiations? This seems like the final year before a massive all-in move.
This seems like the final year before a massive shakeup for the entire conference. Like we just talked about, Giannis might be traded. The Cavs need to shake things up. The Magic look like they could get stuck in this like high 40s, low 50s type of team. Even the Pacers seem like a team that could get hard stuck in this kind of area where it's like you're a 48-win team 3 years in a row, but you can't beat the Knicks. You can't, or they did last year, but you can't beat the Celtics. I know Pacers fans probably feel like, wait, what the heck? We were in the conference finals. But obviously, injuries, they had some injuries themselves too with Mathurin. But like, yeah, the East is weird. I think there's a lot of teams that like the Pacers that are like, why is Philly ahead of us when Philly hasn't done anything? But that's kind of how the East has been for like 5 years.
Yeah, totally. So one of these teams is the only one of these teams that has proven that they have been able to beat the top competition in this conference is the Miami Heat.
Yep.
How are you feeling going into this next season?
Heat were 46 and 36 last year. I think we're headed for that again.
Okay.
Yeah, last year, a lot of Jimmy's kind of athletic indicators declined. A lot of the, we did our prediction on who might fall off. I don't think Jimmy's going to fall off, but a lot of the stats I used to predict, guys like Clarkson falling off were things I pointed out about Jimmy last year. Like, hey, his assisted shot percentage is up by a lot. Like, there's way less self-creation. I think we're going to see a more aggressive Jimmy because of this whole weird impasse where it's the inverse, where the player's like, please let me stay, and the team is like, we're going to get rid of you, which is, I don't know, a weird dynamic for a guy who's actually done like a lot for this franchise.
I am not like terribly high on the Heat, but I think there is a very real place that they can improve. Last season, they were 21st in offensive rating. And I think with their personnel, with Terry Rozier, with Tyler Hero, and in a more engaged Jimmy Butler, I think they could threaten to get have a major improvement on the offensive side. But then the flip side of that coin is like, Bam, can you clean up everything? Like, Jimmy, like, is it okay if we have these guys playing these massive minutes?
What worries me about the Heat is like, it's hard to overstate because I think the assumption is like, oh, they'll just replace everybody they lost. But like when you lose like
Caleb Martin, Orlando Robinson,
you lose Max Strus over the course of like 2 off seasons. All of a sudden it's like, we kind of have to prove if Nasir Little can actually step up as a Heat player. Like Nikola Jovic has been fun because he sounds like Nikola Jokic, but he's not Nikola Jokic. Like, and I know he's only 21, but like, okay, man, like he's really young. So that's the crazy thing is like, yeah, maybe in 2 years, Nikola Jovic is the next Heat Max Strus. But at 21 years old, I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Let me tell you, Nasir Little, it's not
going to happen.
Not great.
I agree. Like Jaime Jaquez, like I think I was the one guy last year who, when everyone was like, Jaime should be rookie of the year, I was the one guy who was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like, is Jaime Jaquez going to be an appreciably better player? He's a 6'6", kind of small forward tweener, more of like an ISO scorer. But like, I just don't really see the guy on this roster who's going to be the next like Miami Heat. Like, whoa, they just turned that guy into a sub all-star out of nowhere. Like, I just don't see it on the roster.
Alec Burks is going to make his first all-star this year.
Yeah, I just think the Heat are kind of poised for like a low 40s, mid 40s season again. I think they'll be a little bit better because we're going to get a more engaged Jimmy. That's been the whole kind of everything everyone in the Heat world's been talking about is like, is Jimmy going to care about the regular season more? And I think if he does, like this team could be better. It's going to take a Spoelstra masterclass for the playoff run again, though.
Yeah. I agree. The Heat definitely have the lowest ceiling. Like, even if they were to like battle to a high playoff seed, I just have a hard time envisioning them being able to time and time again, if all these, especially this top four, if they're all healthy, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it. The only weird Heat make the conference finals I could see is if it's like Heat Sixers and all of a sudden Jimmy Butler has put Paul George in the torture chamber and Paul George has lost all the confidence in the world and somehow Joel Embiid cannot get the ball near the basket because the Heat are doing some weird 5-0 zone.
I mean, Paul George was kind of who was it? PJ Washington kind of put him there last playoffs. So.
That's the one thing I think the Heat have a slightly higher ceiling than the Cavs, Magic, and Pacers, but it's only because Jimmy Butler has shown this weird ability to turn into Michael Jordan for like 3 weeks at a time in the playoffs that I just don't know if Halliburton or Paulo can do. Maybe Mitchell can, but I don't know about the other two guys. Although I'm really high on Halliburton. I think the Pacers are going to be, I think that you made a joke on not a joke, but on the Two Truths and a Lie podcast you guys did a couple weeks ago, you said the Pacers have the 1 seed. Like, if the Pacers had a shocking like 54-win season, I wouldn't.
Yeah, can we get into the Pacers? Because like for me, of all these teams, the argument that the Pacers just like super overperform in the regular season, I think I can buy into, because we take us back to really before the calendar turned last season. The Pacers were just an absolute machine offensively. They ended up with the second best offensive rating.
Best offensive rating, but number one in actual points per game, which I know sometimes, offensive rating is probably a little bit more of a better indicator of who's good defense, but it shows you that they're playing at a crazy pace. Like they had 123 points per game last year. No one else had over 120 point one. Like they were like, there's a gap between them and number two, the Celtics, and it's because they're playing at this crazy pace, which we see this in the NBA. The Kings a couple years ago, the Hawks a couple years ago. Like sometimes the team that just plays at a wicked fast pace is really hard to play against when you're playing against a slow team the night before.
That and the lineups, once Siakam was integrated, the defense got a lot better. Like a Siakam, Miles Turner front court is a very formidable, well-sized front court that I think, it's impossible to incorporate that big a piece of your machine into mid-season like super effectively. I'm a big believer in Rick Carlisle. I think he's one of the better coaches in the league. And they didn't have Benedict Mathurin for the whole stretch run. I just think like there is an opportunity there for the Pacers just to be a regular season wins factory.
I agree. And the other thing I kind of talking myself into the Pacers maybe being in the tier 2. The one thing I like about the Pacers too is usually when you have these teams of like the really fast pace, we're going to play up and down, we're young. I feel like usually those teams, it's like, oh, they've got a lot of nice guys on their team. Like Domantas Sabonis seems like a nice guy. I feel like the Pacers have a bunch of dudes who are like, I'm going to fight you.
Totally. Yeah, they have MFers.
And I feel like they're a unique blend of like feistiness and toughness with guys like Nembhard and...
Oh, talk about Nembhard in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like,
and McConnell.
Next level.
Mathurin even seems like a guy who's...
Mathurin, definitely. I mean, he was coming into the league saying, like...
I want to battle LeBron.
Battle LeBron.
Neesmith, too, is another guy like that. I just remember from the playoffs, like, getting in guys' roles. And I think, like, what's also really, like, if you're a Pacers fan, is, like, Miles Turner's younger than you think. He's only 28.
Mm-hmm. And Jarris Walker didn't play really at all, and he has all the tools to be like the perfect swing big man coming off your bench.
Yeah, and Matherin's only 22. Halliburton's 24. Nembhard's 24. Neesmith's 24. Like, this team has a chance where it's like everybody comes in. Now, no, we know linear growth is not a real thing. Like, that's just not how real life basketball development works. It's never linear growth. But there is a chance where it's like if everyone is like collectively on average 5-8% better than last year, like all of a sudden this is a team that could be like, oh, actually we have 58 wins.
Yeah. Well, and you look at what their record was last season against Boston, Cleveland, Miami, Milwaukee,
They
New York,
owned
and Philly.
Milwaukee.
They were 14-9 against those teams. Like, especially in the East, like that's not easy to do.
I think the Indiana pace does throw other teams off. Yeah, no, I'm high on the Pacers. I think of all the teams in this tier 3, I could see them ascending to tier 2. I mean, they were in the conference finals last year, and they had their own injuries too. So you can't take that away from them with what happened with the Knicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, they really took it to Boston before Halliburton got hurt.
All those games were close. All those games were close.
They literally threw the ball out of bounds and they literally should have won. Was it game 1 or game 2? I don't recall at this point, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay. There's probably 2 more tiers.
Yes, I have 2 more tiers.
What is your tier 4?
My tier 4 is the Atlanta Hawks, the Detroit Pistons, the Charlotte Hornets, the Chicago Bulls, and the Toronto Raptors. It is my largest tier.
You have everybody.
No, I have 2 more in tier 5 in my Cooper Flag tier.
Who's the Cooper Flag tier? Sorry,
my Cooper Flag tier is the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards.
Okay.
The reason why I separated these 2 tiers is I think this tier, 2 of these teams are going to make the bottom play-in, and I think they'll be very happy to be there, and it's going to be on the back of their young stars. The 2 teams that I didn't include, they don't have a young star. But in this tier, we've got Trae Young, we've got Cade Cunningham, we've got LaMelo Ball / Brandon Miller, we've got Zach LaVine / some amalgamation of Josh Giddey and Kobe White, and then we've got the Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett triumvirate in Toronto. And it's really hard to forecast which of these teams are going to be the teams that break through, but I think they all have a reason that they really should put their foot down on the pedal and at least try to compete this year.
Man, the bottom of the East is weird. I think I'm looking at the bottom very differently than you, which is funny because we've been so aligned at the top. I have Atlanta by themselves in tier 4, kind of.
I see that argument for sure.
Atlanta, 36-46 last year. They were the last playing team behind Chicago. We talked about Chicago earlier in the offseason. I think Chicago is going to be a bottom 2 defense. I think they're going to be just abysmal. The Nets, I think, are going to be way worse.
The Nets, that's why I have them. You could almost put them in their own tier. I think they're going to be the worst team in this conference.
And so Charlotte is another team that you had up there, and this is one of those teams we've always been very different on. And like last year, Charlotte had the worst point differential in the NBA. They sucked.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: LaMelo missed about 60 games, but they were really bad when LaMelo played. I mean, they only won like 5 games when he was healthy. Like they sucked with him, they sucked without him. Like. They're a bad team.
I mean, I don't have these teams in any order.
Yeah. I feel like Charlotte has a chance to be in the low 20s again.
They do. I like they have a new coach who comes from like the Celtics pedigree. I am a believer in LaMelo Ball if he can stay on the court. And I'm a believer in like year 2 Brandon Miller in this. And you know, as much as Miles Bridges is a piece of shit, he is a good basketball player. And those are 3 guys that you could see like on any given night, they could win a game for you.
Yeah, or lose a game for you.
But that's more than a lot of the teams in this tier can say.
Man, I don't know. I feel like I don't know how to even feel about the bottom of the East. I'm really low on the Raptors, even while being high on Scotty Barnes. I just think the Hornets, negative 10 point differential. Like they were about as historically bad as the Celtics were historically good last year.
Yeah. I mean,
so I guess to kind of focus on tier 4, tier 5 at the same time, we both have the Wizards and Nets at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're technically in my tier 5.
Okay, so then
Flag tier.
so your playing teams are going to be the Atlanta Hawks, yeah?
Yeah, probably
And-
Atlanta Hawks. And, I feel like I'm really staring the Bulls and the Pistons in the face here. Like, the Bulls just have a lot of NBA players that I'm like, I could see you guys winning enough games to get that 10th seed. Like, Josh Giddey can be good in the regular season. He has been very effective in the regular season. Zach LaVine has been very effective. Who knows? Like, complete mystery box in Lonzo Ball. You don't know what you're going to get there. Vooch, not prime Vooch, but I mean, he's a starting center in the NBA still, I think. And they really have no reason to like tank. I don't even know if they have their pick.
So last year, the Bulls by point differential were the best of the bad teams in the East. But here's the thing: they're like only allowing 113 points a game. But part of that is they played at like a really slow pace, being a DeMar DeRozan team. I think upping the pace could actually be a bad thing for them in the win. But then again, they could lose 6 wins, be at 33 wins, and that still would have been a playing team last year.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, losing Alex Caruso, they probably lost their 3 best players from last year. DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and people forget how good Andre Drummond was last season. But he was like closing games for them.
The Kobe White
instead of
fans are so
Nikola
mad right now.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Kobe White. Okay. I take it back.
3 of the top 4.
Yeah, 3 of the top 4. But I like Montas Buzelis. Like,
I think he's gonna be rough as a rookie.
he might be rough as a rookie, but he might, with these teams, it's like one of these teams is going to be like awesome in the second half of the year when like half the East has shut it down.
Okay, I have a prediction. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I think this year's East is going to force the NBA to change the play-in rules to the bubble play-in rules, which it should be.
That would
by
be
the
good.
way. Which it should be, by the way. I don't think a 47-win Pacers team or whatever should have to justify why they deserve to be in the playoffs over a 33-win Bulls team. I just don't. That's not fair.
I agree with you that there should be a threshold.
There should be a threshold. I think this season will actually result in the NBA implementing a threshold like they had the first year we had the plan, because this is going to be stupid. If we have like a 34-win Raptors team as the 8th seed and they beat, I don't know, let's say they beat the 42-win Hawks. Like, that's just not fair.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
You know what? As much as we're talking about the Bulls, you've talked me out of the Bulls for the last play-in
Which
spot.
is funny because you've talked me into the Bulls.
The Pistons, I think I'm in on the Pistons.
Oh,
I think I'm in on the
they
Pistons.
were 14-68.
I know.
That'd be like a 20-win jump.
They have a new coach. Cade Cunningham missed
good.
a lot of time, and he is very good. And they got a lot of NBA players. Like, I know Tobias Harris. I get the whole thing about Tobias Harris, but he is eons better of what they had in the wing. He makes Cade make more sense. Tim Hardaway Jr., not a perfect player, but a guy that can just go off.
Play regular season minutes, yeah.
Play regular season minutes, win you games. Malik Beasley, he was one of the most efficient three-point shooters in the league last year, is exactly what the Pistons need. I don't think what the Pistons are doing necessarily is good for their development as a team, but I could see it resulting in a bottom to play-in result.
The East, man.
The East.
All right, I think that's the end of the East.
You didn't say anything about the Wizards.
Well, they're going to be bad. We got the pool party. We don't really got a lot going for us.
Hey.
I mean, Sarr, I'm going to say I think Sarr is going to be a colossal bust.
That summer league is like,
Rough.
yeah.
And
like,
we've seen players with rough summer leagues be really
but
good.
not like that. Not like that. We've never seen anything like that ever.
I think the difference between like a rough Trae Young summer league and a rough Sarr summer league is like Trae Young looking rough is like, we know this guy can shoot. We know this guy's a good decision maker. Like, it'll come around. With Sarr, it's like every pre-draft concern was like, nope, he is still bad at that. He's still bad at that. He's still a little too skinny. He's still not that great of like, you know what I mean? It's like everything people were worried about didn't shine.
But I think you also might be underrating how cursed the Wizards are. Like,
Wait, you believe in curses now?
oh yeah, the Phoenix Suns are cursed. No, but they did add real talent. they added Malcolm Brogdon, who is definitely the best, most competent guard on their roster now, and I think would have been last year, and Jonas Valanciunas, even though I think Jonas Valanciunas will probably be on a different team by the time the playoffs come in. But both of those guys can definitely contribute. They added Sadiq Bey as well.
Okay, cool.
Which he can do stuff. I guess he's from DC.
He can dribble.
I don't know. I mean, they're not going to be good.
They're going to be so bad.
They're going to be bad. I love Bub Carrington, though. Wizards should be very excited about Bub Carrington.
Wizards should be excited about Koulibaly gaining 2 inches of height.
That's true.
Maybe Koulibaly will learn how to dribble with his other hand. If that happens, I mean...
This is the perfect segue into this, though. Did you see how many players in the media day, like scrums, were like, oh, yeah, I gained 30 pounds?
Yeah, Victor.
Like, Victor, frickin' Koulibaly gained weight. I just kept seeing, I think, like, Giannis lost weight. Joel Embiid lost weight. Everybody's just talking about, like,
their weight.
Getting on the Atkins diet in a way that I haven't seen before.
Okay, before we go to Hot Streak Shooting Slump, Patrick, your Eastern Conference champion is?
I'll go Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I'll go Boston Celtics too. Max, you want to predict something?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be the Celtics as well. I mean, why?
Why not?
Why not?
What?
Yeah.
Okay, resident Timberwolves fan, what are your cat predictions for the Knicks?
I don't think he's going to do very well. At least not to start. I really think it's going to be tough to integrate him into what they have going on there. Like, harder than they realize. Also, he's never played anywhere else. Like, that he's not used to just...
From New Jersey, though.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Randall has played for a few different teams. I feel like he knows how to work himself into a new system and, like, figure it out. Cat, this is new, uncharted territory. I don't think he's going to do very well. I think maybe by the time the playoffs come around, it'll make sense, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yo, my girl, when we were together, like I knew how to like deal with her, but
wait.
That's what it sounds like.
I was like,
Max just sounds like he's talking about his like ex-girlfriend that like no one really like.
I mean, I feel like that's a natural feeling for a Timberwolves fan.
Totally.
Talking about Cat.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel very weird about the whole thing. Like, I think it makes sense for the most part, and like we had to do it, but it's just the way it happened.
It's a different type of player, but I feel like Max's relationship with Cat was like when, as a Giants fan, we traded Odell, and people were like, how do you? I'm like, dude, he's a pro's pro. Like, he handled New York. Like, Cleveland will be nothing for him.
I just so reject the idea that the Timberwolves had to do this.
Well, like, money-wise,
they eventually would have to do this, but they're not saving any money right now. Yeah. They're still a second apron team.
Right.
They're still going to have to operate like a second apron team. And like the argument to do this for the Timberwolves is they just didn't believe in their depth.
Yeah.
But I
just feel like if you told me to make a list of all the people that I would trade Cat for, Julius Randle would not be on that list.
No, and he shouldn't be.
And like, I get that you add in DiVincenzo as kind of like a sweetener, but it's almost like I'm giving you a double cheeseburger and you're giving me like some beef and a bun, and you're like, it's the same thing.
I 100% agree. I mean, we didn't talk about I hate this for the Timberwolves, and we'll get into this next week. But I just think the way Randall plays is like the perfect thing to stifle Anthony Edwards' growth.
Don't say that.
In my opinion.
God damn it.
I think it's a move that isn't meant for this season. I think it's meant for the long term, and it has a lot of financial.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
I could also see Randall only sticking around for like a year, and then
who's gonna? He has a player option.
I
think he's opting into that bad boy.
I kind of feel like the Timberwolves maybe realized with Cat, like, I feel like the Timberwolves are a team that's only going to thrive when the whole roster is full of like douchebags. To be honest,
the Timberwolves were in the Western Conference Finals last year.
Thank you, Patrick.
The Timberwolves were in the Western Conference Finals last year, and Anthony Edwards had like a really down series because he's 23 years
I'm
old.
a big Ant guy. I love Ant.
Why not give it one more shot when he's 1 year older, when he has a playoff run under his belt. That's how the NBA works. You have to take your lumps. They were the best. People were talking about the Timberwolves being the best defense of all time after the first round. I hate that they didn't give them another shot to go through it.
Listen, I get wanting to get rid of Cat for somebody that's a bit more consistent, especially for his age and for his salary that he fucking demands. But it's not Julius Randle. I just keep going back to that. I'm like, it's not Julius Randle.
I think you guys are sleeping on how much just shifting the ratio of children to adults in the locker room could subtly help.
Maybe. But they also, I don't know. I just feel like they are straying further and further from their identity.
I just feel like you're in a series like the Mavericks series, and yes, Julius Randle is very flawed as a basketball player, but I think the locker room dynamic of Cat's there for Ant, who's there for Ant's there for Cat, who's there for Ant. I don't know. I feel like they kind of need because Gobert is also super immature. This locker room kind of needs more adults.
But if that's why they did the trade, why invest the only draft capital that you have left on a 19-year-old point guard from Kentucky that weighs 65 pounds?
No, I agree. I didn't love that draft pick for them either.
I don't hate it moving forward, but I don't know. I just feel like their whole offseason, and we'll talk about it next week, was them saying we don't believe in our future. And I think that's a bad call. I think there was a lot to believe in.
No, I think that's a good take. I don't know. The Timberwolves are a very confounding team. But I think it also could be not that they don't believe in their future. Maybe it's just they really believe in Naz Reid.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of this too.
Because I think yes, Kat did a good job guarding Jokic in that series, but so did Naz. Naz had a lot of stuffing Jokic post hooks, an alarming amount for Jokic, where it was wait, is Jokic getting old? Yeah. Why does this guy keep blocking him like that?
and I'm a big Naz Reid guy, but that makes it even more unpalatable for me in that we're very high on Naz Reid. So that means the two guys you traded Cat in for might not even be in your closing five. That's a little alarming.
Yeah, I think they're in a weird spot because obviously Cat gives you shooting, but they lacked perimeter shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of standing around
on the perimeter.
On the perimeter. But
yeah.
I get that. I get that element of it. And Dante DiVincenzo is he'll be great for them. But there's also just I don't know, maybe Jaden McDaniels is the guy that they actually are going to move off of next because they feel like they have enough perimeter defense and they want to tilt more offense. I don't know.
Is Julius soft?
I don't think Julius is soft.
Okay.
He's definitely a hard-nosed player.
Yeah, I think he's flawed in many aspects as a basketball player, but I don't think he's soft.
Because I'm thinking one of the main Cat allegations has always been that he's super soft, And I'm wondering if there's okay, we're going to get somebody that you can't call soft.
Randall's going to bang. He's going to fight. And
yeah.
I think that's the thing. The Timberwolves, I think maybe are looking at it as our team build should be straight, very physical defense, and Ant just finds a way to win instead of a very elegant looking team.
Yeah. Yeah.
My thing is just Randall shot 31% from three on high volume last year. Ant is only a 35% 3-point shooter. I think McDaniels shot 33% last year. Rudy Gobert is a non-shooter entirely. It's just that's not building in the modern NBA.
So are you saying Julius Randle shouldn't have been in the 3-point contest 2 years ago?
That is not what I said at all. I would never say that.
You wouldn't question their selection process?
No. Actually, next year's 3-point shoot-off should be only Timberwolves starting 5 members.
That would be funny.
Let's get Rudy Gobert in there, baby.
Yeah.
God. Remember that 3 he shot in the playoffs? Rudy?
Remember that turnaround?
Ugh.
Oh.
Filthy.
That's sweet. All right. Hot streak, shooting slump. Max, you on a hot streak? You shooting slump?
I'm on slump. I'm slumping. Yeah, I've been feeling sick these past couple days. I won't go into too many details, but I've been feeling poorly. And the Cat thing kind of threw me for a loop. Still don't know if I'm super fully against it or not, but it just made me feel feelings. Cat's been there the entire time that I've been.
Yeah, it's been a decade.
Yeah, so I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, who are the
It's a
longest
business.
tenured
It's a
NBA
business.
players?
Not a great week. Not a great week. But and also it's like getting kind of hot again now.
I know.
And I thought we
why
were
is it
done
so
with
hot
that.
out here? You know what's weird? It's always like this week out here in the San Fernando Valley, it's like 95 degrees every day this week. But back in West Hollywood, it's like 80, 77. Like,
Yeah.
why is it so different? Like, so different.
Yeah, I don't know.
Valleys and mountains, man. I feel like you hear about this shit in like science class and you're
Yeah.
like, does it actually matter? And then like you're like, oh, it does.
It makes a huge difference.
But
Yeah.
like, why?
Air gets trapped in valleys or whatever,
Yeah.
and like mountains. Like,
But doesn't air
block-
float?
Great point. Great point.
I don't know.
Some great insight from Dr. Jiedel over here.
We should pivot to a science podcast.
I'm on a hot streak. I feel like I've just been having a fun week. I've been cooking a lot. I made pumpkin pie, my favorite pie for the first time. We didn't put enough sugar in it, but that's okay. You know, my one slump of the week is I came back from Europe hefty and heavy.
There we go.
To the tune of like 10 pounds heavier than
Damn.
where I left. And guys, this weight's not coming off.
Oh yeah. You haven't talked. Have you talked at all about your trip?
I didn't talk about it last
A
week.
little bit last week.
Oh, okay.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit last week. Yeah, I went to Oktoberfest. I drank a lot of beer. I went to Portugal. I drank a lot of wine, and now I'm heavy and hefty. And so it was really funny. My girlfriend and I, we were supposed to go to a pumpkin patch on Saturday, and she's like, "Can you look up a pumpkin patch?" So I go and I find a list of like top 10 pumpkin patches in LA, and it's like, none of them are open. And she's like, "Okay, I found one." So we get there, and it's just not open yet. I'm like,
It's
I
a
told
little
you none of them are
early,
open. So we ended up making pumpkin pie anyway, which low-key was a blessing because originally we were supposed to like make it out of an actual pumpkin, and I was like, seems a little
I don't.
difficult,
Yeah.
Do people do that?
right? You
Dumb
have to be
question.
able
It
to.
had to at one point.
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
I would imagine you have to like clean out the inside and then like peel the
Get rid of all
outside
the
and
skin.
cook
Yeah,
that all
maybe
down.
Food process it. But we had a great weekend anyway. We're actually going to go to a resort in Palos Verdes, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm
Very
really
nice.
excited about that. But highlight of the week though was she had never seen Tiger King, so we started watching Tiger King again, and I forgot just how awesome that show was.
Yeah.
It's so much better than you. It's like you remember it being awesome, but you're rewatching it and you're like, no, it's as good as I remember, if not better.
It's just funny because when you started that sentence, I thought you were gonna say like some classic movie of some like cinematic masterpiece, and you're like, no, Tiger King.
It was a cultural reset.
I
Tiger
forgot that in the second episode is the one where one of Joe Exotic's employees gets their arm eaten off by a tiger, and it cuts to him, and he's like, "I will never financially recover from this." And then it cuts back to the employee, and they're like, "So I could have had my arm surgically repaired, or I could have had it amputated, and I didn't want the media to win, so I got it amputated and went right back to work." And you're like, these people are crazy.
Wow. That is so representative of like America.
But no, the whole time, it keeps cutting back and forth between Joe Exotic being like, "I fucking hate Carol Baskins," and Carol Baskins being like, "Oh, hey, you cute kitten cats." And the whole time, like, just wait. He's going to say something about her that's this crazy accusation, but it's probably true. And I'm like, where is it? When does he say he killed her husband? And at the very end of season 2, fucking Joe Exotic's like, she killed her husband and fed him to the tigers. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, I can't say I've had that good of a week. I didn't watch any Tiger. I actually did watch some trashy television, though. Are any of you guys privy to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
I've been hearing
on
nothing but
Hulu?
great things.
Wow, what a reality show! I'll go with I'm on a hot streak. That show is like the first episode of that season is one of the more like just surprising episodes of reality television that I have ever seen. This girl named Taylor, she she cannot get it together. Like, she's Mormon, so they're like not supposed to be drinking, but she just drinks like a fish, and like everybody hates her. And then it's like, oh, she's pregnant. Like she has this whole swinging scandal. Like, it's just like, I could not recommend more. And in that show, there is like the most sociopathic character that I've maybe ever seen in reality television. This one girl, Whitney, she cannot see anyone else's side of anything. It is very, especially as someone from Arizona. Arizona has a lot of Mormons. It made me miss home, and it was just very, very entertaining. Binged through the whole first season.
We should do reality TV week and skip our Western Conference preview.
Yeah, that would be way easier. I'm so nervous. I'm going to have a shooting slump next week just because I'm thinking about how to rank all these Western Conference teams.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't want to tease anything, but I feel like I'm drinking too much gold and purple Kool-Aid right now.
Oh, he's back,
I'm
baby.
so back.
He's back. Probably my highlight of the week is we went and we shot a video at SoFi for Jesse. So we saw the Chiefs Chargers game, which was very fun. SoFi is such an amazing stadium. It was cool to see Patrick Mahomes do his thing in the flesh.
What is the NBA equivalent to the Chiefs, where the Chiefs are like actually a very boring football team, but they play only exciting games? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
what
they're
you mean.
actually not the most fun team to watch, but every one of their games is like
Honestly,
weirdly
I feel like
exciting.
it's kind of the Lakers.
Yeah.
Like, they have crazy games every week.
But they're kind of a boring team in general. Yeah. I feel that.
I mean, if you catch the Lakers on the wrong night, it's like that game is unwatchable. Actually, no, Suns. Suns, the ugliest team to watch. But I'm so excited. Basketball's almost back. I can't wait to get into it. That's all I got. That's all I got, really.
We should do like a season long competition where it's like our three teams.
Oh yeah.
Like whoever's team does the best maybe gets something, and the loser has to do something.
We should just draft all the teams.
And those are our teams?
Yeah, those are our teams.
Sounds fun.
Should we do that instead of a Western Conference preview? Maybe we'll do.
We got plenty of time.
I'm just trying to avoid doing the Western Conference preview because genuinely, I feel like I could make a case for 13 of the 15 teams for being really good.
You can. You absolutely can. And even with the Trailblazers, you can like squint. You're like, maybe if Scoot has this breakout season, Anthony Simons is really hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah.
They have a triple big lineup of Robert Williams, DeAndre.
Wait.
Ayton,
You're
and
not talking
Donovan
into the
Clingan.
Trailblazers. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Peace.